Test, test. Okay, we're going to get started with our budget work session. Chairman Wingate's running a little bit behind, so we will go ahead and get started. Yeah, he's on his way.
Macy, hello.
So we'll call it to order.
We're all wild over here.
Huh?
We're just wild.
Yeah. I think we have a packet in front of us, and we will turn it over to Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, good. I'm ready to call it morning again. Whatever time it is. We are ready for, today we're set to talk about budget revenue. And so looking at those projections and kind of going through sales tax for the year as well as property, as well as taking a look at fund balance current and just reminding of our timeline. So I'll turn it over to Mary Ellen. She'll take us through tonight's presentation. You also have, as requested by Ms. Robson on Monday night, the kind of ESSER breakdown. So you've got that for your review of the draft of that budget that we had to get into the portal, and obviously all that comes before you, and we'll go through that. So thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. So again, just as we look at revenue, we keep our mission in mind and keep that at the forefront as we think about why we're here and how we're utilizing those funds to forward our mission. Go to our timeline, and again, on Monday we talked about our other fund budgets and obviously the results of all the community forums and getting the information on where we've been spending our money and where we're looking forward. And so today we're going to talk about revenue, and obviously that's the first big piece of our main GP budget, seeing where their sources of revenue are coming from and helping us understand that. And then just looking forward to March 29th when we'll bring it all together and give you the full budget. So if you'll turn to the next sheet for the sales tax, you've seen this similar chart before. Again, revenues are still holding strong, and we're get that a little bit delay of when it's collected to when we actually get the reporting on that. So we're still just reporting the January revenues, but we're looking strong. And when we think, especially with some stimulus money coming back in, that the sales tax will continue to remain strong through the end of the year. And then the next slide, we'll look at property tax. And again, that revenue comes in kind of in chunks during the year. I will say the February collections were a little behind usual, but some of those got collected where there's a big in lieu of payment that came in a little later than usual. So that came in the 1st of March. So the March numbers actually should be a little higher than usual. So we're a little bit behind in the actuals right through the end of February, but we feel like those will catch up through March. And again, it's just a timing of when people are paying some of their property taxes. But we still feel it's strong, and we've talked to the county, and they feel that's strong too. There's been a lot of construction, and I know some neighborhoods have seen a great deal of construction. So we feel property tax will continue to hold strong through the end of the year and then for next year. And so the next slide kind of got our first revenue projection and also showing historic. And basically, if you kind of go to the bottom, you'll see we're really projecting flat revenues. And that's a real conservative, fiscally conservative approach. We have a lot of unknowns with BEP. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but really right now, there's not been any legislation passed to address our reduction in ABM and C and how that will help us. So we just got an update from class that there is some legislation looking at hold harmless, but we haven't seen any progress on that yet. So we feel it's really prudent at this point to just kind of hold the BEP where it's been at. And we'll keep looking at these numbers. We'll get some new sales tax numbers will come in next week, so we'll have some more updates on that. So we're going to keep monitoring revenue, looking at opportunities, but we again feel like the place to start is a very conservative approach towards revenue. And there are some jumps in some lines, and that's just kind of some cleanup. Some of that was adjusted when we did the amendment. So we did capture, and this is compared to amended, so it's really flat to amended because we've already captured that big increase that we've seen in sales tax. So that's already captured in there, as well as a modest increase in property tax in the following year. And that's in line, again, we've talked to the county and trying to make sure that we're staying in line with where they're seeing all of our future revenues. Again, just a little bit of cleanup in a few of the lines. And in the other sources, we get indirects, and so that's anticipated funds to help us offset some of the ESSER administrative costs. But that's, again, in the flat and conservative revenue. It feels like that's really the best place to start our discussions for the budgets. Any questions on what we've looked at so far?
Sorry, I do. Can we go back to page 2?
Yep.
I just had a quick question about your slide. And you may have pointed out and I missed it, but I didn't see a fiscal year 21 actual for January. Is it because we do not have the January numbers yet? There's no yellow line for January.
Yep,
Page 4, yes, I'm sorry, page
Yep.
4.
yeah.
Okay,
It-
what
Yeah.
is our projected for January?
Yes, sales tax usually lags by,
Couple months, yeah.
by 2 months. So every third month you get the prior
Right.
2 months. So that, are you pulling?
Yeah, let me
she's
see.
got-
Well, I'm mostly just wondering what the data point is that's missing, because
Yep.
if we don't have an actual, then I'm just wondering what the projected is, that's all. But I mean, it appears that we're trending higher than even projected, or at least compared to the actual of last year, so I would assume it's probably a positive number.
Yeah, I'm not
Like a
quite
strong
sure
number.
why that data point missed in the projection. Oh, it's because so it switches. I was trying to see, there should be,
So the January number is what's actually
yeah,
collected.
right,
The blue bar,
yeah.
so the blue bar is what's been, was it actually collected?
No, that's the
No,
project-
that's
that's the
fiscal year
projected.
20 actual.
Yeah, yeah, it's the projected, so it should be the 6.8.
Okay.
I'm not sure why, I apologize,
It's
yeah.
okay. No, it's
That's about
fine.
even,
Okay.
it's about 300,000 over
Oh, okay.
last year, yeah.
Okay, okay.
I'm not sure why it's not showing up in the slide.
Try, I have a question as well on the next slide.
Yep.
If you're done taking why is February property tax lower than the previous year?
Right, that was the in lieu of, so some of the businesses pay an alternate, and I'm still learning some of the rules, but it is a local company that paid, and we didn't get it till the beginning of March.
Okay,
So that's just a timing difference, so our,
but this isn't a trend, it's
right, yeah. So our March collections are usually about 3 million, we're projecting them to be 7, so that 4 million will get caught up next month,
Okay.
yep.
I guess on the topic of property taxes, I am curious, like, do you expect for, like, has the county said if they do expect there to be any type of delay compared to previous years on the collection of property taxes this year?
They felt like it was mostly, I think when we talked to them, they felt like it was just some small timings, but that it was still on track to be within where it has been in the past.
Okay.
Yeah, and we feel like it's strong with the construction. and-
It's fascinating to look at the numbers from where, a year ago, we didn't know what was gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to see how positive we've come out.
Yeah.
I just wonder if we are headed toward, a delay that we couldn't anticipate, and it's like a backlog delay. That's what I'm just I'm
Yeah.
just thinking about that. Hopefully not.
And I think that's a fair question. That's one Mary Ellen continues to elevate for us as she looks at forecasting and projecting. And we talked to, and I always get it backwards, I used to put Al and Lee together. Lee, yeah. We talked to Lee and Mary yesterday, and we're kind of talking through property tax, just numbers and just, not specifics of numbers, but where things were projected. And they're very positive about property tax. I think, frankly, you'll see, and as Mary Ellen, I know, pointed out in the revenue that we're being pretty conservative about revenue projections for two reasons. One, obviously, you've got the BP piece, which is significant there. But then from a second standpoint, I mean, things have been extremely positive. Remember that to your point, this time last year, we were bracing for, a significant economic downturn. And we do continue to wonder or want to be fully prepared for, something unanticipated to happen. And so we're trying to be as, thoughtful and conservative from that standpoint as possible as we look at budget preparation.
I don't know what here to tell us to talk. You said mentioned something about the ADM, you kind of went over.
Oh.
What did you say about that? It's
So
hard to understand.
current fiscal year 21 actuals are about 1,000 students down from prior year.
Right.
So with that and the projected governor's increase, it really puts us flat at our projected BEP. So if they hold us harmless, that'll actually put us in a very positive position, but that's why we're projecting it at the same level it was last year, or this year, fiscal year 21. Because we don't, right now, they have not said that they will hold us harmless for that loss. And we're, compared to other districts, we're in a pretty good position with that, but it's still, a decrease. And so the governor's salary increase, the 4% that I think was in the governor's proposed budget, kind of gets offset by the decrease in ADM.
So, to make sure that I'm following that, on page 6, the proposed FY 2022, the 179 million, that's down 4.8, is that because of this hold harmless conversation? Yes, Brian's saying yes. Okay, that's what I was thinking, okay. And then walk us through again, please, this other sources, the 1.2 anticipated. It's the last number, so we're expecting 2.4 million in that proposed budget, but
Right.
where's this 1.2?
So that 1.2, it is our indirects on the ESSER funds. So we're budgeting in the federal budget. We talked about there was 20 million of ESSER 2.0 funds in the fiscal year 21 budget, fiscal year 22 budget. So I think our indirect rate that we're calculating on that 6%. So that's the 1.2.
So we have the ESSER money accounted for in our federal budget that we
Correct.
talked about
Yes.
on Monday, but I'm not following you on why we would put any of that money in this as indirect.
So we get for federal funds, most federal funds, we have the opportunity to take indirect charges to help cover some administration costs. So we can't.
Okay.
Right, so there's, we have to do some overtime or something to help support the ESSER that we can't charge directly to the grant.
Uh-huh.
So we have an opportunity to take indirect costs. And that's what most of that
Okay.
other money, we do that for all of our grants. Where we
Right,
have an
okay.
opportunity to do that. And so we're using that, we're gonna use some of that to help cover some additional administrative costs to support the extra purchasing, extra accounts payable that we'll have to do to support ESSER.
Okay.
So other local revenues on page 6.
Right.
Actual fiscal year 2020 is 3,909,000.
Right.
The budget for 2021 is 3 million, but it was amended to 300,000, and you're proposing 300,000. I see 2018 was 8 million, 2019 almost 5 million, and then 2020
Right.
4 million. What is that line, and why has it decreased, and why are we not expecting it to maintain?
So, and I'm gonna need a little help on that, but it's on there were some settlements that we got related to sales tax. It's the kind of sales tax we used to get, and there were some settlements that we received over several years, and so 2019 was the last year we received the major part, and then there was some in 20, and so it was in the original budget, I think, because there were some last minute adjustments to the fiscal year 20 budget.
Yeah,
But that was not gonna be received.
people may recall, it was the mixed drink sales tax. Apparently, there was a lawsuit that we weren't getting our fair share of it, and to settle the lawsuit, we got back payments. But now the back payments have run out.
Okay.
And so this is the
would
run,
be
this is back to
expected
steady state.
annual
Right.
Correct.
payments. Okay.
Right. And so we cleaned it up when we did the amendment, it wasn't the original
And then
budget.
my final question on that, the other sources, on the bottom of that,
Right.
is that grants and?
That's indirects, so that's from all the other grants.
Private organizations, foundations, so on and so forth.
And it's just the indirect cost, so it's not any of the outside money itself, it's to help support the administration of them.
This was a discussion that we were just having
Yeah.
with Ms.
Yeah.
Hill about, we're getting so much more federal funding that indirect costs next year, or indirect, revenue next year will go up because we've gotten, the ESSER funding. So this is something that we always have. We are able to, recapture administrative costs for all federal grants. But of course, we're going from, having $1 amount of federal grants to now with, so far, the 50 million that's coming for ESSER, we're anticipating we'll have more of that indirect cost, so that's what's in the other sources line.
Okay, because I was gonna ask that, where that fits, in the revenue, the 90 million or the 40 million, but because it's not on here, correct?
That's right.
And so we just separate that completely because these are our operating and non-operating
Correct.
revenue.
Yeah.
And so then I'll ask about private grants and private, donations and contributions. Where does that fit?
Right, so that was in the Monday, in those self-funded, the line of self-funded revenue, so that's where those types of revenues come in.
Okay.
And so they have their own separate revenues and expenses and, net to zero, where everything that comes in goes out.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And just as one more point of clarity, for all of those grant funds and private grant, you all approve those budgets individually as we get them. So you see them as they come in, they're on board agenda items as you get them. This general fund budget is using our general fund revenue, but you do approve separately every grant that we get.
And we will, when we bring the full packet on March 29th, you'll have a detailed list of all the grants that make up those self-funds and federal fund numbers, the total that we showed you on Monday.
Thank you.
So just to repeat back to you with
Yep.
relation to the anticipated growth in local taxes, that's something you all have talked through with Mayor Coppinger's team.
Yes.
So you're anticipating some growth, but we're also balancing that with the possibility of losing some BEP money. So that's how
Correct.
we come to this place.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and again, that changes over, we've already captured some of the increase in sales tax, which allowed us to cover the salary changes, including the step. Okay. Okay, so if you'll turn to the next page, so we wanted to give you a snapshot of last year's fund balance at the end of the year. So this is the audited fund balance. And I think if you're kind of in the middle of the page, you'll see that it's about 10% of our budget is represented in our fund balance, and it really translates to having a month of operations. So again, we've been fiscally responsible with our funds, and again, keeping money in the savings account to prepare for rainy days and help us continue to move our mission forward. And then if you'll come down to the bottom, we have to reserve per law 3%, and in conversations in a lot of other districts, that's what they have in their fund balance. Yeah, but you can see we're closer to 30 million in our fund balance. So you keep an eye on that and make sure we keep that in mind as we look at what our expenditure proposal will be when we bring that later this month. And we will also do a reconciliation, do a projection of where this year's fund balance will end up. So we're still working on those numbers and kind of trying to look at what opportunities we will move we thought some expenses will be moving to ESSER, and we've gotten that submitted this week for 2.0, and just looking at what of those we can use to help our fund balance recovery this year. Any questions on that sheet? Okay. So just to kind of pull all the things we've talked about together. So as we've mentioned, we are staying in contact with the county and looking at where they're projecting and making sure we're staying in line with their projections. And again, sales tax has been strong, and they've talked about how they've seen, we get some different components to sales tax because of the city sales tax, but internet sales have been strong. And then for us, we've also seen, just city spending also very strong. And then for property tax, when we do project some increase there, because we do continue to see new construction. And that we also think there could be, with the impact of the federal stimulus funds, some people that maybe haven't been paying will catch up on some of those payments. So we feel very confident with that. And again, the BEP hold harmless, I mean, that is really our big talking item, where, weekly calls with with the other counties, looking at understanding what's going on in the legislature. Like I said, we just got a notice today that looks like there's some new legislation that might help that, but I don't know that there's a strong support for it. And Dr. Johnson might have some more to speak on that, but, we don't want to count our eggs before they hatch. It could be that there's, that even at that level, they might use some of the ESSER funds to backfill. I know that there's been some talk of that. And then that's really a key component that we're looking at, is how we braid our GP funding with the ESSER funding for the next couple of years, and really looking at that, how we can use it, certainly for one-time items, but it might be some things where we can use it to leverage, to set up things for future success, or give us time, where there's some changes that we can't prepare for quite yet, we get ready for that and use those funds very strategically, and looking at it from a kind of long-term perspective on how we can leverage those.
Just one ADM point before she hits that last, I think it may be the last bullet. Of the 1,000 students, about 700 of them are kindergarten. And so, what we think that indicates, right, is that kindergarten next year is going to be a heavy class, and we were talking to principals about that a few days ago, and thinking about their staffing and what they do in regards to kindergarten. But you have parents that are making decisions, and if I'm in the middle of COVID, do I send my child, or do I hold them and send them to the next year? So that's what most systems, I believe the number is all but 16 school districts have had enrollment declines, and proportionally, as Marilyn shared, ours looks pretty good in comparison to most. And but we know the kindergarten is the big place, and then the other big place, honestly, the next heaviest place is 12th grade, and so. It's really trying to make sure that kids, that are close to walking across the stage, or frankly, a lot of those students are students that have been at risk, making sure that we try to capture and recapture as many of those students as possible. And that's what's kind of being seen as we talk to other districts and see what's there. So those are the two big spots, with kindergarten definitely being the heaviest as far as ADM, and would anticipate the vast majority of that returning this upcoming year.
Well, but you'll know those numbers pretty soon, though, right? Because we're doing kindergarten enrollment right now.
Yeah, we will. So kindergarten enrollment will start in middle of April, I believe is when they're going to do that, and we'll have a pretty good indicator at that point. Honestly, not all, we know, we want all parents to do the enrollment, on that date, but, not everybody shows up, and so it's a continuing rolling kind of thing it ends up being. But we hope to capture as many of them as possible. In fact, in the next few days, we'll be doing more to push out that date. Yes. So we'll begin to get an indicator. Absolutely.
I think, one of our challenges is we don't actually get the first official BEP projection from the state until mid-April. So I've gone into the schedule and done my best calculations to look at, what different options were. I know there's some, different bills that change some of the ratios for nurses to students, and kind of looked at what if those done. But again, if some of those pass, then we can figure those in if they get in time to, bring forth in the budget. I know one of the items they talked about was, even though, our BP may be adjusted, even the amount that it's adjusted down, the state would set it aside. And then once we actually have actual BEP, the ADM for next year, the funding would come after that. But obviously that wouldn't be in time to be in the base budget, but that would be some funding that would be returned. So that's one way they've talked about addressing that. But again, we don't feel comfortable. You can tell I'm a pretty conservative budgeter on the revenue side. And so, I'd rather come back and say, oh, we got some more money, than, hope to hit something that's not there. Mm-hmm. And again, I think we're very fortunate with the time with the ESSER funding, and trying to look at how we use that to continue to support our students and our teachers. Again, the places that we've seen the decrease, and we do have some shifting of headcount from different schools. But overall, we're trying to keep the teachers, teacher numbers where they are. I think that's very important because we hope that the enrollment numbers will come back, so we don't want to make any drastic moves. We figured that's just a temporary timing difference.
Yeah. And we'll put a finer point on that. We've got about 51 teaching positions that we're trying to hold because we're anticipating it coming back, and we don't, the last thing we want to do is to disrupt the school level, right? So we're offsetting those as much within the staffing model. We're offsetting those as much as we can to stay operationally sound because so much hard work is happening in schools. So that's something that we look at our budget and what's there, that we have to keep in the front view.
Have we reached out to see why these parents are not sending their kids to kindergarten? And have we tried to, is it something we're doing possibly?
Well, no, so they're not actually our students yet, right? So we wouldn't have,
Do you think they're waiting to see what we're gonna do about going back to school?
well, I hope they know we're going to be in school.
Well, we haven't assured them that. I think that a lot of them are waiting to see exactly what we're gonna do. The mask thing's a big deal for a lot of the parents that contact me. I think at some point, we're gonna have to make a decision and tell parents exactly what we're gonna do, so they're not left just scrounging around trying to find babysitters in the middle of the week. I think that's something we need to lay out. We may know it, and we may think everybody else knows it, but we need to be very clear with parents
Yeah.
what our plans are, so they can make plans.
Sure, that's very fair, and that's something we absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like, Ron is totally right about that. I mean, I know what we're doing, and and to your point, like, we know what we're doing, but I am getting asked on a very regular basis, like, well, what does August look like? Do I need to be looking at my options? And I'm just stressing to parents, like, absolutely not. Like, school is happening in August. We've sunsetted the phase tracker. It's a different world this coming school year. But to Rhonda's point, I mean, she's right. Like, the public is not 100% sure, what we're doing. And so hopefully you guys will start working on those talking points.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll speak to it a little bit right now while we got a moment, and then we'll put some more. I think it's great feedback. We'll put some more official, just so it's very clear. We're going to be in school. As I say this, I think about COVID-20 being somewhere around the corner, but we're going to be in school 5 days a week.
Well, I hope we handle it a whole lot differently if it is.
Yeah, well, we've been in school 5 days a week, more than most systems our size. So we're going to be in school 5 days a week for all intents and purposes. Now I want to be clear. COVID will still probably be here, in particular amongst our students, because students probably will not be vaccinated by that point. We're getting very positive information about the community being able to be vaccinated, but not necessarily students. So we may have some individual school site things to address as the year goes, but we absolutely have every intention of being in school 5 days a week. And the phase tracker has been sunset, is a good word. We've transitioned away from it just because of the availability of vaccines. So fully anticipate that. So that's great feedback.
Well, and also, Dr. Johnson, I think it's huge about the mask thing. I hear a lot, especially for younger students. I know that we've taken it out of our rules, I guess it is, that K through 2 have to wear a mask, except they don't have to wear a mask in the classroom, but a lot of principals and or teachers are still insisting that students continue to wear them. It's caused a lot of angst for some students and parents, and I get a lot of email about that. I think that's something that we need to decide and let parents know what our plans are. If we say that it's not going to be necessary for children to wear a mask in the classroom, I think that ought to be school-wide and not just for certain schools, in certain classrooms in certain schools.
Okay. So again, just bringing us back to, what next steps are. So, again, the timeline, so on the 29th, we'll bring forward the detailed packet of revenue, expense projections, and then, like I said, also bring in the other funds detail, the summary that we talked about. And again, we're going to keep looking at revenue, and if we, keep looking at information, I said we'll have sales tax collections, should have that information for recent collections on Monday. And then we'll keep, keep pushing on BEP. I know HCA, that's what their major item is, talking about that and trying to help, again, don't let a temporary change impact what we're doing in the classroom. And,
One more
Yep.
question on the kindergarten. If, the problem right now is also that some may have homeschooled in kindergarten and are gonna introduce their kids to first grade, right? As they chose to keep them home this year. But is kindergarten, more expensive to us as a system from a budgetary perspective? Are there more requirements, or is it, if we do double our kindergarten size, the assumption is, I mean, it's zero sum, right? Like, the ones that would have been in first grade are coming into kindergarten, but does that actually have any budgetary implications, if they do come into kindergarten?
So from a BEP perspective, we get additional dollars for K-3 just because the class size requirements are,
K3,
yes,
so-
exactly, are smaller. So if we get double, the kindergarten class size or even first grade, we would just move teachers between, right? Because they do have the same class size ratio. So we'd anticipate to be able to do that. And then just, you all know, every year on the 20-day mark, if we do find that we've been way off in terms of schools, projections, enrollments, we do make hires and make moves based on the 20-day enrollment. So we will catch that up if there is something unanticipated around where enrollment actually shakes out.
and so you're just bringing us back to the last slide, just kind of with our, why we're here and what we're trying to do is to help our children thrive. And yeah, I think it's trying to balance the financial responsibility with our mission responsibility. And, I take that very seriously. That's really what my job is trying to, make sure, and it's not just for today. So I think it's not just looking at a one-year budget, it's looking in the future. So, because, you can spend all your savings to get something done, but then you got to worry about tomorrow. But if you also just save money and don't invest, you start, seeing the impact in our buildings because we're not taking care of them. So it's a balancing act. And so, accountants are good at balancing. That's what we do. But thinking about it both short and long term is really important, and keeping why we're doing it at the front of that, and keeping, kids and teachers in the classroom and learning and moving us forward. So it's a interesting year to be working through the budget with a lot of, uncertainties. But I feel like I'm excited to be here, excited to work through this. I still got some learning things to learn, learn some of the different little levers and stuff. But I feel very confident as we're moving forward, and, very, very thankful for everybody's support, and thankful, we've got this opportunity, with ESSER to really move some things forward and set us up for the future. So any additional questions?
Yeah, Dr. Johnson, you mentioned 51 teacher positions right now that have got to be filled. Is that what I heard?
No, so when we staff every year within the staffing model, and have tried, took over the last few years to, create some more consistency in regards to, how we're running 79 different campuses and how we look at staffing. And so when we when Penny and her team run through the staffing model with Nakia, and what ends up happening is, we staff based on the number of actual students that are in the seat. And so because of that ADM decline, we've got 51 teaching positions, right, that are beyond what the actual numbers show. So we're gonna hold buildings harmless, whether our district gets held harmless or not, because, whether we have to, that's whatever we got to do, we're gonna get through the year, because we have every indication that ADM will return. And so that's been our approach. We don't want to disrupt schools at all.
Sorry, I misunderstood.
No, it's a fair question. Now, we probably will have 51 teaching positions. If we have 51, we'll be in good shape, but we will have positions to fill.
But they all won't be in kindergarten.
They all won't be, no.
How many, what normal positions do we have to fill at the end of the year?
So, we have a lot of transfers back and forth, but we typically have around 260 to 70 resignations, and then about 70 or 80 retirements, depending on the year. So, around a little over 300.
And that's kind of normal.
Yeah, okay. Right.
Is that like 5% of your total staff?
Yeah, and I will say for this year so far, knock on wood, the resignations
Yeah, our retention rate hovers between about 88 and 90%, and has, for the last several years. So that's about what they're normally going after as far as candidates.
Do we anticipate any change after this year to those normal retention rates due to stress? As
Well-
far as we know?
Penny, can you get a mic, please? Thank you.
So I have read a lot of research articles that they do anticipate, resignations and retirements after COVID from just, exhaustion, tired, stress, and that's not just in the teaching profession, but yeah.
I would think that like you'll see a big shift in that whenever the economy picks back up and there's a lot of jobs available.
Agreed, yeah.
Because people will be worn out from everything and they'll be like, oh, there's an opportunity. I'll go take it.
Yeah. And the stress on our teachers, it's difficult too. Yeah, and so that's why we're also looking at additional pipelines and ensuring that we have, other capacities to build talent too, so.
So to
And
Ms.
provide the
Thurman's
support.
statement, I think teachers too probably will need, we can only assure as much as we can assure, right? But
Mhm.
those assurances of thank you for putting up with a incredibly difficult year, but we're not
Mhm.
anticipating that being the case next year in any way. I'm sure they're also watching, but yeah, it's been a tough year on a lot of people, so.
Well, I think that concludes what we have as far as Mary Ellen and revenue projections are concerned. And obviously, anytime you have questions, y'all know, please feel free. Dr. Highlander serving as liaison, appreciate his work and continued work, and we will continue to plug away at our budget over the next several weeks.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Johnson and Mary Ellen. And with that, we'll adjourn until 5:30 for our regular scheduled board meeting.